All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Olivia, and this is Artemis, one of my foster cats. She wanted to say hello and welcome you all to our intro to fostering meeting. She may be in and out of the video, so don't mind her. It's one of the things we deal with as being with fosters. We've always got kitties roaming around and wanting to be involved, but we love them dearly. She just wanted to say hello. All right, Artemis. Like I said, my name is Olivia, and I have been a foster and volunteer with Loving Care Cat Rescue for amazingly almost 10 years now. It feels like just yesterday, but time flies when you're having fun. I am also a board member with Loving Care Cat Rescue, and I am the designated operations manager, which means I handle many different aspects of the rescue. A lot of it behind the scenes, but I am heavily involved in all of the fosters. I enjoy meeting every single one of you. We have a very tight knit network, and a lot of friendships have been born through this rescue, which is really special. Through my years of being with LCCR, I really have gained a true appreciation for this organization, and I wanted to share my experiences and some information about fostering and what it looks like with Loving Care Cat Rescue for those of you who may be interested in joining this wonderful organization. Fostering is an extremely rewarding experience. And with the right tools and information, really anybody can learn to be a foster and save the lives of cats and kittens. The biggest benefit of fostering, in my opinion, is that we do truly save lives. We are the people who allow them the opportunity to have a space to a temporary space to survive and to thrive until that permanent home comes along. And the reward of seeing your foster cat grow and gain its confidence, and eventually, like I said, go to their forever home is immensely gratifying, and it's very fulfilling. There's really nothing like it. You also become a part of a network of other fosters and like-minded people who share the same passion that you do. And they can offer you guidance and support, but most importantly, friendship. Like I mentioned, some of my closest friends nowadays are those who I've met through the rescue, and I cherish those relationships. You also gain an incredible amount of knowledge, not just about cats, but in animals in general. You learn about their behaviors, you learn about medical care, you learn and you build those special bonds with each and every one of your foster cats and kittens that forever remains in your heart. And one last tidbit before we get into it that I thought would be beneficial to mention is the most common phrase I hear from people who have who may show interest in fostering, but have held themselves back is, I wouldn't be able to give them up, and that's why I cannot be a foster. I would want to keep all of them. And my response to that phrase is always the same thing, that goodbye is the goal of fostering. Saying goodbye to your foster cats is the ultimate goal of being a foster, because it means you've successfully helped them find their forever home, and you ultimately have saved their life. And while you have been doing that, when you say goodbye, you are freeing up space to take in others. There are always a wait list of cats and kittens who, are waiting for that chance to be saved and to be brought into a foster home. So if we were to keep all of them, even though, we love all of them deeply and they all become part of our families, saying goodbye to them truly is the goal, because it means that we now can take in the next one who, is still waiting for that chance. And that person may very well be you, the person who gives them that chance to come into a foster home. So we can't keep all of them. We love all of them, but goodbye truly is the goal of fostering. So with that said, all of you are here because you have somewhere along the line expressed interest or thought to yourself, oh, what is fostering about? Is that something that I'd be able to do? What does it entail? What does it look like? So that's why we are here. I will make this short and sweet, and we'll get right into it. So fostering, what's it all about, and is it right for you? An introduction into Loving Care Cat Rescue. Our rescue is a 501c3 nonprofit. That means we are 100% volunteer organization. Every single penny that we raise, that people donate, truly goes towards the care and medical needs of our kitties. There's not one person in this rescue who gets paid, including our board of directors. All administration fees are paid for by the board of directors, which truly allows us to say that we are a 100% volunteer organization, and every dollar goes towards the care of our kitties. So in 2024, we amazingly saved 652 cats and kittens, and we were able to find 574 of them permanent forever homes. I think to this day, since we were founded, we are over at this point 5,400 cats and kittens we've been able to adopt and save. That's 5,400 cats and kittens who are no longer roaming the streets, who are no longer at risk in a shelter. They are living their best lives. And that truly is because of our network of fosters who have opened their homes and allowed these kitties a chance to thrive and then to find their permanent homes for them. So with that said, we have the opportunity here in Central PA for caring people to join our growing family of volunteers. And I gotta move this out of my way. And fosters to help save lives. So why foster? I touched on a few of these a little bit, but I'm going to read over them again. You really do gain a sense of purpose by helping save the cats and kittens. It's extremely fulfilling. There's nothing better in the world than watching, this very fragile, vulnerable cat who has sometimes seen a lot of, trauma. They come to us from all sorts of situations. A lot of them aren't good situations, or they've been, fending for themselves on the streets, or they've, unfortunately have gotten injured or have wounds, or who have never seen a human before, who have never been petted before, who have never had that sense of companionship or love from a human. And giving them those things, and watching them blossom into these really amazing cats is truly very fulfilling. You also get to teach your family members and children how to care for and interact with cats and kittens. You know, a lot of us have kids ourselves, a lot of us have nieces and nephews. Watching them interact with our foster kitties is very truly special. And in my mind, we're sort of training the next generation of animal lovers and animal rescuers to continue on, our passions and the need for people just to show empathy and sympathize with these animals who most of them didn't ask to end up in these situations. So it's really special to, watch your kids and your family members create these bonds with your fosters. You also get to join a network of like-minded people who share your passion of, just animal welfare in general. We're not all crazy cat people, crazy cat ladies, as people may like to think. I'm truly an animal lover at heart. If it has a heartbeat, it doesn't matter what it is. I feel a sense just of empathy to help if they need help. Unfortunately, we see kitties and cats being very disposable in today's world. So we do often, you walk outside and you don't usually see dogs running around or other household animals, but you very often do see cats roaming around. So it's just a need in today's world and reality to help cats in general. So the people that you meet within this rescue, truly share your passion. They are all animal lovers. We all become, like I said, we're a very tight knit community. We hang out within the rescue, and a lot of us hang out outside of the rescue. So it's really special bonds that you're creating, not just with your fosters, but also with the people within this rescue. To feel the satisfaction when your foster finds his or her loving home, and knowing that they are going into a home that they are going to be loved just as much, if not more, than what they've been loved in your own home. So again, goodbye is the goal. It's not always easy. Bringing in others is sort of helps mend that uneasiness and the sense of you missing them. I always tell people who are sad when they've said goodbye, I've got 5 more waiting, and that's sort of just the gap of that sense of sadness. Bring more entertainment into your home. All of these cats and kittens are different. They all come with different personalities. You've got ones who are super confident, will quickly do zoomies and show you their silly antics. Cats are funny in general, especially when you allow them the opportunity to really show their personalities. Watching them zoom around chasing a laser pointer, or a lot of my fosters have actually played fetch with me, and will play fetch. As long as I will throw their favorite toy, they will bring it right back to me. Cats, of course, they sleep a lot, but I think it's a common misconception that they don't have personalities, like dogs or other animals who are more entertaining. So they certainly do. It's a lot of fun to watch them out of their shell and show you their personality. And of course, you offer your fosters a safe space to heal, grow, and socialize. So what is expected of a foster? Of course, you've got your normal daily care. They need to be fed. You are providing them a shelter, a safe space to land. You should playtime, socialization, grooming. Artemis, who I showed you at the beginning of this, she is a long-haired cat, so she does need to be brushed. And socialization is very important. A lot of these kitties come to us very timid, very shy. We've got a lot of fosters who find it extremely fulfilling to work with these type of cats who just don't know any better. And they work with them for weeks on end, sometimes months, and then finally the kitty slowly but surely sheds its shell and comes out of its shell. And when you get that first sense of a head nudge or a little purr, there's really nothing like it. Of course, you are expected to obtain the medical care as needed. Working with our resources, you need to assist with promoting fosters for adoption and attend adoption events as possible. We have a lot of great venues that allow us to bring our kitties in, and we hold adoption events typically on weekends, Saturdays and Sundays. We've got a whole adoption event calendar. We have an adoptions managing team that put together all of these events. So it's a really great way for, your fosters to be exposed to the public, and people come in and they meet your kitty, they get some one-on-one time, and we have a lot of really successful adoptions through our adoption events. We also use social media and pet adoption websites that you will list your fosters on, because the more exposure, the better. So, if you can get a lot of people to see them, it's a better chance that they're going to find their forever person and their perfect match. You also do need to handle the adoptions of, again, working with our resources. We've got a whole bunch of documents that are there for your needs. The most important, in my opinion, is the foster intake guide. That is a document that basically leads you from that initial day of intake, of bringing your new foster into your home, all the way through adoption, and the couple steps after adoption that we do to sort of tie up loose ends and whatnot. So it's a resource there for you. It walks you through step by step exactly what is needed throughout the foster process, throughout the application process, throughout the adoption process. It's going to answer a lot of your questions. But if you go through that and you've checked your documents and resources that we have in place and you still don't have your question answered, of course, we have a team of people who are always there to provide you the support to answer your questions. We also have a new mentor program. So new fosters are paired with a more experienced foster, and that person basically serves as your go-to. It's a resource for you to be able to ask questions for, to be there for you when you're not sure what the next step is. They're there to ensure that you're doing everything that's needed, so you certainly are never alone. Once you foster with us once or twice, you typically get a good handle on our processes and protocols, but it can be overwhelming at first. And that's why we have support and people here to assist you as needed. And of course, you're expected to have fun with your fosters. So the requirements and necessary skills to be a foster, like I said, really anybody can become a foster, but there are certain things that are definitely needed to ensure that you are providing um, an appropriate space and setting to successfully foster your animals. So one of those things is a safe, stable environment. You want that to be separated from your other animals, and you want it to be a space that your kitty can decompress in. The initial intake of a cat is sometimes overwhelming for them. Some cats do totally fine and they don't need a lot of time to decompress, and they want to get out of that. It's a room, a bathroom, sometimes a crate. It just all depends on the kitty, its needs and its personality. But some cats are ready to go like that night, after a few hours. They want to explore, they want to be with you. That's a 2-week quarantine. That's for the safety of your foster, your other animals, for yourself, really for everybody involved. So there are a lot of things that we look for in that 2-week period to ensure that before your cat is able to be let out of that initial, quarantine space, that it's healthy. There's no medical needs, there's no illnesses, there's nothing that can be spread throughout your house. So that is why it's very important to provide them a small space to not only decompress, but so that we can also evaluate them appropriately. You need to be able to communicate with LCCR reps and potential adopters. So there is a sense of, just being able to, respond in a timely manner. We do a lot of emailing. You need to be able to look at applications. You have to have at least access to a phone or an email, a computer, to be able to do all of these things. The ability to communicate with a variety of people. Like I said, we have multiple different teams within LCCR. All of them are very approachable and friendly and kind. We also have adopters that you will be communicating with. So you do need, you need to be able to communicate with them and not only represent yourself and your foster, but you are representing Loving Care Cat Rescue as well. And we always want to put our best foot forward. So, we always want to have a smile on, and it's a little bit like customer service in a sense. You just, you want to present yourself well. And, we take our reputation as a rescue very seriously. We've built a fabulous rescue. We're very proud of everybody who's involved of this rescue. And so joining our team means that, there is a standard to, not to live up to, but just to present yourself with, that we do expect of all of our fosters and volunteers involved with LCCR. You need to have, patience and commitment to handle the highs and lows of fostering. You get a lot of highs with fostering, but it also comes with lows. So, it's not always butterflies and rainbows. We do see a lot of hard cases. We see a lot of medical needs. We see a lot of illnesses. And that's part of fostering. Ringworm and fleas and lice and worms. It may sound very icky to people who have never heard these words, but in reality, in rescue, these are all very normal things. We have medications, we have protocols to handle and take care of all of these things. But, sometimes it is difficult. And sometimes, when you get these sort of harder cases, it does take a little bit more effort than, say, a cat who has come in completely healthy. Not just medical needs, but their personality needs and their socialization needs. Some of them need a lot more patience to be able to excuse me, to be able to get to that point where they're going to be ready for adoption. So it's one of those things where it's even more gratifying, the harder cases, once you get to that light and once you get to the point where they are ready for adoption. But it does take a lot of effort, and it's not always, like I said, sunshine and butterflies, but it makes it worth it in the end, definitely. You are expected to follow through with your commitments and pay attention to details. Our protocols are in place for a reason. We are continually fine tuning them, but they're truly there to make the foster process, um, the most efficient that it can be. It's there to make your lives as easy as possible. But there are a lot of things that you do have to pay attention to, overlooking certain things, not paying attention to protocols for medicines and vetting. It not only prolongs the adoption process, but it can put your foster at risk. It can put your other animals in the house at risk. So, you really do need to pay attention to detail. You need to follow our product protocols and our processes to a T. Doesn't mean we all don't make mistakes. We all have. You learn from them and you move on, but paying attention to details, really reading through our processes and protocols is going to hopefully alleviate a lot of those mishaps that potentially could happen. And financial resources when necessary. We always try to provide anything that is needed for your foster, as far as food, litter, supplies. We try to have a good stock supply of all of those things, and we typically do, but there is once in a while that it may be peak of kitten season, and our storage unit that we use to keep all of our supplies in might be looking a little bleak. It might not have the exact food that you need. It may not have formula right at that second. So at those points, if you're able, sometimes we as fosters do have to go out and buy those things. If you're not able, reach out to somebody within the rescue. You can always reach out to a board member, reach out to your mentor, and we will certainly get it to you. But once in a while, there are things that are needed and sometimes it's just easier to go and to grab the things from the store if you need something specific. But when it comes to medical care and vet bills, the bigger financial responsibilities, those are all handled by Loving Care Cat Rescue. Don't think you'll ever get stuck with a couple $100 or a couple $1,000 vet bill. Those are where our donations go towards. That's the money that are not only our adoption fees, but the donations we raised. That's what we use them for. So, there's never been an instance that a foster has been forced to pay a vet bill or pay for medicines that are needed. Like I said, once in a while, you might have to buy a bag of food if you're able to. And if you're not, then we will certainly get it figured out. So resources and support from LCCR. I just touched on the supplies. As far as supplies, like I said, you need the basics. You need food, you need litter boxes, food bowls. We typically have all of that on hand, no biggie. Sometimes you need crates. We also have those on hand. As far as medical support, we keep a lot of medicines on hand as well. We also have a team of very knowledgeable and helpful veterinarians that we work with. depending on where you live or, where your foster is in that moment would depend on which vet you're going to see if they do need any further medical care. Um, but we've got teams in place basically to provide support for just about anything that, we see with our kitties. Of course, we provide informational support. I mentioned our processes and documents that are there for really as a resource for you guys. And of course, we provide emotional support. I did touch on the highs and lows, and with highs comes lows. Um, Despite our best efforts, we try to save them all, of course, but sometimes, it just doesn't work out like that. And unfortunately, once in a while, we do have to say goodbye, or, despite our best efforts and all the vets' best efforts, it's just not enough. And those are situations where it can be really tough to be a foster when you lose one, especially when you've poured, your heart and soul into them. So at that point, we've all lived it. The more experienced fosters have gone through those situations. It can be it can be even harder when it's your first time going through it. But we are there to, you know, provide, words of encouragement, to just even be a listening ear, to tell you that and remind you that, without, even though it's not the outcome we wanted, without you stepping up, that cat or kitten wouldn't have had a chance at all. So, it's, the emotional toll that sometimes it takes can be hard. But, it does certainly help when you have a community rallied around you to just be there for you when you need it. So we have a few frequently asked questions, and I've got a few other loving care cat rescue personnel on hand that we thought, instead of me continuing to talk, that they could ask the questions. I'm happy to answer them. They're more than welcome to, chime in and share their experience or suggestions to them. Let me see. I think I can, if you guys wanted to unmute.
Yeah.
And whoever's would like to ask the first question,
Yeah.
if you'd like to introduce yourselves, feel free. If not, just ask the question, whatever you guys are most comfortable with.
Okay. So Olivia, it's Lynn. I have the first question. And first of all, I want to thank you. This has been a very interesting and informative presentation. So the first question that often comes up is there a minimum age requirement? How old must a foster be?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So, per our insurance and regulations, you do have to be 18 years or older to foster. Now, that doesn't mean that if you have children, I think that may even be another question, but there are other aspects to that, that I think we'll get into with another question, but you do definitely have to be 18 years of age or older to foster.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. How many cats would I have to foster if I was interested in proceeding?
So that depends on your preference and the appropriate space you have available in your home. I know whenever I first started, I lived in a little 1-bedroom apartment. I had one cat myself, but it was summertime, and Loving Care put out a post of, hey, teachers, you have your summers off. What better time to foster? And I was in college at that point, but getting a degree in early childhood education. So I did have my summers off, and I was like, oh, maybe I will take in a litter of kittens. And so that's how I started. I started by taking in one litter of kittens at a time. I would take in one, I would get everything necessary they needed, I would adopt them out, and then I would be ready to take on my next litter of kittens. That has certainly changed since then. I moved out of the 1-bedroom apartment and we bought a house with more space. So I've had all sorts of, I've had adults, I've had a lot of fosters, I've had a few fosters. So it goes up and down. It really depends on your lifestyle, what you're comfortable with. But as a first time foster, we certainly give you guys the choice. We're going to ask you, what you're interested in. Are you interested, and not just what you're interested in, but what your experience may also allow you to do. We don't want somebody who's never bottle fed a neonate kitten to take in a litter of neonates. So it's based on your interests, it's based on experience, and of course it's based on the environment that you're able to provide with them. If you've got multiple rooms available, again, the quarantine space is important. So if you have multiple quarantine spaces and you really want to jump in full on, head on, and you want to take multiple litters, or, a litter and an adult, but we are also looking out for your best interest. I know a lot of people sometimes are ready to jump in head on and will offer to take in multiple sets of kittens, and before learning our processes and protocols, and may not have the experience to truly know what it does entail to get them from intake to adoption, and become very overwhelmed easily because they've jumped in full throttle, and one of their litters is now maybe an illness has arisen, or they've got a medical emergency with one of their kittens. And so we don't want anybody to ever feel overwhelmed. So my suggestion is always to not even start small, because taking in even one adult or one kitten is changing that cat's life forever. But limit yourself in order to be able to learn the processes and protocols first, before you jump in full throttle. But bottom line is, it's truly up to the foster itself. And we want this experience to be as enjoyable as possible for you. So if you want to do kittens, we will get you kittens. If you want to do a shy adult, and you want to work on socialization, we've got that. We've pretty much got anything that you can think of waiting. And if we don't have it at that moment, I can pretty much guarantee that, we will have an intake request for that specific personality or trait you're looking for. All right, number 3.
So,
I'm sorry, go
as a
ahead, Lynn.
foster, okay, as a foster, am I able to choose? It sounds like from what you just said, I am able to decide whether I want a cat, adult, or kittens. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yeah. And so, of course, the final say lies with the foster at any point. If you have other animals in your house, your house and your other animals the best. You may know your family dynamic the best. And so at that point, it's going to be led up to you guys. Like I said, we always have a pretty long wait list of kitties needing to find placement. So there's typically options, and whatever is going to work best and, fit best into your lifestyle and your house dynamic is going to be the best fit. And that's truly what we want. We want not only the animals to be happy, but, us to be happy as well. We'd never want to bring in, a super timid animal to a house maybe full of dogs who are, might be barkers, and we don't want to stress the animal out. But if we've got fosters waiting or kitties waiting who have been around dogs, or who are very confident, those may be the ones that you choose, because that would be a good fit. So it's definitely, the final decision lies with the fosters. We would never force anybody to take anything that they're not comfortable with, but it's hard not to be. I wouldn't say that they're not interested with, because, all cats and kittens they've all got something, they've all got a little something, even though some of them are more shy and timid. You gain that sense of, when you look at them and they just need help, they need a space to land, it's very easy for you to say, okay, I can make that space. But ultimately, like I said, it does lie within the foster, and they are more than willing to, speak up when needed, or pick and choose what works best for them.
It sounds like you've already answered this, but I think you can elaborate on it as well. Can I foster if I have other pets?
Absolutely. Yes. So as long as your pets are spayed and neutered and they are up to date on vaccinations, um, that is for your own pet safety as well as the fosters or animals that you are planning to bring in. You also want to think about their personality wise. If you've got a cat who has never lived with any other animal, I'd like to tell people with enough time, all cats can coexist. It doesn't mean that they're going to be best friends. So sometimes they do become best friends. Sometimes it takes a couple days. Sometimes it's right off the bat. Sometimes it takes 6 months. Sometimes it takes a year. So you really need to know your own personalities in your house before you bring in other kitties. Cats can be dominant, they can be territorial. We never want to just throw them to the wolves and, throw a bunch of cats in a room who have never met. There are, processes that we put in place to, be able to let them accommodate and acclimate to each other before they are free roaming together. But other pets, absolutely. And we've got a lot of cats. If you have dogs, if you have other animals, it's really great exposure for your foster cats and kittens to be around those other animals. Because in reality, people who are adopting, although we do have first time adopters and people who are, don't have any other animals, but if you're an animal lover, you tend to have other animals already. So it's nice whenever you can tell your potential adopter, yes, they've lived with other cats, they've lived with dogs. We have a lot of fosters who have bunnies, and just all sorts of animals. So the more exposure, the better. But I think it does come down to personality and meshing, alike personalities that are going to get along.
So Olivia, typically how long are cats and kittens with a particular foster before they're adopted? And does it vary between adults and kittens, or is it
Yeah.
pretty much, a mixed bag?
I think it definitely varies. It varies dependent upon the age of when you are taking that cat and kitten in. It varies dependent on the personality and the health of that cat and kitten. If you're taking in a litter of kittens who are, a month, 2 months old, I would I would say you're probably looking at, another 2 months at least to satisfy our vetting as far as vaccines. Kittens need at least 3 distemper vaccines, and those are given 2 to 4 weeks apart. So if you're doing the math at that point, even if you hit the 2 week interval, that's 6 weeks before they're going to be ready for adoption. In that 6 weeks, you have other vetting that's going to need to be done. They need to be spay and neutered. They need to get their rabies vaccine. They have to be dewormed. They need their preventatives like flea and tick. And that is if they're healthy. If they're not healthy, like a lot of these kitties do come to us, they're not completely healthy. So sometimes they're fighting, something very common is a URI, an upper respiratory infection. They've got colds. They have, eye infections. Some of them have, GI issues and those type of things sometimes delay the adoption process, not by a lot, but sometimes, it takes longer than initially we anticipated. So it is a commitment. It's not a long-term commitment, but it's definitely not like a week or two commitment. Adults can typically, if they come to us healthy, they check all their boxes, we get them vaccinated and fixed, or they're already fixed, or they come to us with a previous medical and vetting history that we can verify. Those are ones who may be ready for adoption within a couple weeks and are able to be listed quicker than, ones who come to us with zero vetting and no medical history, or are just very young and not quite ready. For kittens, typically we wait until at least 12 weeks. So that's going to be like your very first interval that they may be ready for adoption. Rabies vaccines get given at 12 weeks, and that is one of our things that we include in our adoption fee that has to be done before adoption. So at the very minimum, I would say 12 weeks for kittens. But definitely once they've gotten all of their vetting done and have a clear bill of health, as it's when they're going to be ready for adoption, which can vary.
So related to that, Olivia, if I go on vacation and I'm fostering cats and kittens, am I responsible to find somebody to care for them while on vacation? Are there people available within the rescue who could help me?
Yeah, so we often see that, especially through the summer months. We all deserve vacation. I think it's when you're fostering, we need not just from fostering, but from life. I'm a true believer of taking care of yourself. Your mental health is very important. So taking a week or two away is very warranted. And that's one of the pros of this rescue is you gain friendships, you gain relationships with people that you're not only friends with, but that you can trust. Caring for your animals and not just your fosters, but your own animals as well. I think I've pet sit for many people within this rescue. And whenever I go away, if it's not my family, I'm asking people within this rescue. So we've got a Facebook page that's set up for our fosters. And when you do become a foster with us, you get invited to join this page. It's basically fosters of LCCR. And very often we see our fosters who have life events or are going on vacations or going out of town that need, cared, animal sitting, whatever they need, then our people will step up. We also, a lot of us live within a decent distance of each other. So that makes it easier. A lot of us already know where people live. They've already been in houses. They've already met their fosters. They know about them. And if it's easier to transfer your foster animal, your cat or kitten, to somebody else within the rescue, and if that's a plausible solution, that's also fine. It's really just what works best for, us and for the animals. But if you've got somebody yourself who, isn't affiliated with the rescue, who wants to pet sit or is your normal pet sitter and you trust them, then that's also fine as well. As long as the animals are going to be cared for properly and get, what they need. There's a few different options, but that's the main line of that.
And you touched upon the foster intake guide and the great mentoring program. Can you clarify what supplies LCCR provides?
Sure. So, supply wise, such, litter boxes, we've got carriers, we have crates, we have bowls, we've got litter mats, we've got toys, beds, we have all sorts of stuff. I'm trying to think about what is in my house right now as far as supplies. But anything you can name, we'd likely have. The biggest day-to-day supply obviously is going to be your food and your litter. And we are partnered with some great organizations who do donate to us, and we are able to pick up food and litter. But, oh, I see you. Hello, come here. I know. Did you want to say hello too? Okay, say hi. This is Winnie. Say hello. Oh, you're fine. She's another one of my fosters. She's sitting here meowing and rubbing at me. It must be almost dinner time. Yes, it is. So food and litter are going to be your main, supplies. We try to supply it. If we don't have it in stock, if you need something specific, you can always reach out to somebody within LCCR and we can navigate, however we need to get it, we will get a hold of it. We have, as far as that's something I haven't touched on is transportation. Fosters are expected and need to be able to provide transportation to and from, medical appointments, your spay and neuter appointments. If there's an emergency that arises, you have to be able to get them into a carrier and get them where they need to go. So although we can supply the carriers, we can, supply all the supplies that are needed, we can't supply cars to everybody or a mode of transportation. If there's ever an instance where for some reason you usually have transportation and say your car is just not, say it's in the shop, or you're just not able to provide transportation at that moment and you need it. Again, we do have a network of people who are usually able to step up and help in that instance, but day to day and regularly, not just for the animals for the animal safety, and things happen, you do need to provide transportation for it. It's not a lot, but on those days that you have appointments or your cat needs to be somewhere, it's definitely a lot easier on us if their fosters provide that transportation.
Olivia, you touched on children of fosters. So I do have the impression that it's okay to have children, but can you elaborate on perhaps ages of children? What is a good parameter for those fosters who have children?
Yeah, you can absolutely foster if you have children. I've always encouraged, like I said, children to be around my own fosters, but just animals in general. I think it's a really important trait for children to learn at a young age, to be, kind and care about animals. With that comes comes the dangers of having animals around young kids. There's things that we can't predict that happen. You can be, always supervise. I try to preach that to people, especially if you have young kittens. My own niece, there's nothing more in this world that she loves than to bottle feed my neonate babies. They're fit in the palm of your hand. She's got her little bottle. But now she's 9 now, and she's been doing this with me for many years. But when she was, say, 5 or 6, she's not to be trusted fully, even though, there's things I put in place. She has to sit on the ground, she can't pick the little baby up. It's on her lap, on a blanket. I've put measures in place to try and avoid any accidents that could happen. But at the end of the day, accidents very well can happen. You have to be over cognizant of those things, because we are responsible, for the animals in our care. So when it comes to small kittens, if you do have children under 2 years of age, we try not to place very small kittens with them. Not just for the kitten's sake, but also for your child's sake. Kittens' nails are like needles, is what I refer to them as. And even though the kitten, doesn't mean to, they will scratch you, and you will have tiny scratches on you. Now, as adults, it doesn't hurt us, but for a child, it can be scary. That initial prick or scratch, may cause them to, take a jump, or if they're holding the kitten, possibly to drop the kitten. Unfortunately, I've heard a lot of really sad stories that it's nobody's fault, but they are truly accidents. But we try to, not put people in those circumstances that, things like that would happen. So, children are a plus, absolutely. Always supervise them with your fosters. There's a lot of pros and a lot of really heartwarming moments you're going to see if you do have younger children with your foster animals. You just have to be responsible, and always keep in mind that young kids are very unpredictable, and so are animals in general, but especially cats who have claws and they have a full set of teeth. We just don't want anybody to get hurt, and we want it to be a joyful experience for everybody. So
Okay, Olivia, you already answered this one. What happens if I want to go on vacation?
yep, I already said, we, are happy to assist when needed. We have a support team and system that, you get to know, you'll make friends, you'll have people on hand that are more than willing to help you. Um, you can transfer them if needed. If you've got a whole house full, then like I typically do, I find it easier to have people come to my house and do it. Um, if you're going away for a week and sometimes it's difficult to find just one person, then you find 3 people to sort of split the difference. But there's definitely people who are willing. We all sort of support each other in that aspect, in a lot of aspects, really. So yeah, that's no issue. You still get to go on your vacation. I think that is it. So if you are ready to become a foster, you know, your next steps, we do have a foster application, and that can be found on our website. Our website is lovingcarecatrescue.org. It's very easy. We also have a Facebook page. We have an Instagram page. Loving Care Cat Rescue are both of our tags. You can find our website through those pages as well. Once you submit your foster application, there is going to be somebody that will go through it, and they typically will call you within a few days. You will discuss a lot of the things we just discussed here. You'll discuss what your house looks like, who lives in your house, what your plan for intake is, what that space is going to look like that you're going to provide the foster. You know, you're going to talk about what you're interested in taking in. If there's a specific age range or personality traits that you're looking to foster, we're going to consider that. If you've been approved to foster, we're also going to ask you about your pets and verify again that your pets are up to date on vaccines and that they are fixed. And then if you are approved to foster, we do have a foster agreement. You can sign that. It's, you know, read through that. It's just the basic things. And then after that, we will do a orientation and pair you with your mentor. Once you get through your orientation, sometimes you do intake the kitties before your orientations, but I find it to be a lot easier with, you know, especially first-time fosters, if you go through those orientations first, just to get a good grasp on what's coming next. And that way there's no surprises and you don't feel overwhelmed. But at the very least, we'll definitely get you a mentor paired with, and if you do happen to intake your kitty before your orientations, you know, you've got your mentor to reach out to. You can really reach out to anybody within the rescue. I don't think anybody, you know, we're all willing to help, but there's definitely lots of resources and people you can speak to if you ever run into any issues or have any questions. So let me see. If you're not ready to become a foster, there are definitely so many other ways that you can help support our mission and our passion to help these kitties. We are always looking for volunteers. We need volunteers for our fundraisers. We've got adoption events we can always use volunteers for. We do a lot of fundraising and marketing. We have a lot of behind the scenes things that we do to not only get the name of Loving Care Cat Rescue out there to the public, but to also keep the wheels moving within the rescue. So we've got, you know, an application management team who, you know, goes through all of our applications. We've got a marketing team that brainstorms ways that we can market our name and our mission to help get more funds and support. You know, we've got an adoption events team that put together all of our adoption events and discuss, you know, venues and ways that we can, you know, help get our kitties adopted. So there's all sorts of things. If you're really good on computers, we have a lot of spreadsheets, we have a lot of systems. We're always looking for more volunteers, more hands on deck. You know, you can do a fund drive. We are always so grateful for any supplies, food, litter supplies that are donated towards us. A lot of people do birthday fundraisers for us, which is really awesome way to support us. One of my favorites is my niece did a birthday party last summer, and it was a cat themed eighth birthday party. And instead of gifts, she asked people to bring donations for the rescue. And a lot of people still brought our gifts, but a lot of people also brought donations. And she was able to, you know, gather them all up and bring them to all of our fosters who were so grateful for them. You can help pick up donations. Like I said, we've got partners who donate pallets to us, and we frequently need people to help unload, to pick them up and help unload them at our storage unit. You can help at adoption events. I already said that. Help pet sit. when fosters go on vacations. And of course, there's many other ways you can find all of the ways that you can help support us and LCCR through our website under the Get Involved tab. Excuse me. I touched on a lot of them, but be creative. I'm sure there's plenty that we haven't thought of, and there's so many creative people out there, and people who are wanting to get involved and wanting to support us, and we certainly welcome everybody and any ways that people feel that they could support us and our kitties. Any additional questions? If anybody watching this does have specific questions, or you just want to speak to somebody further about this, you can find our email through our website. But just like our website is lovingcarecatrescue.org, our main email is lovingcarecatrescue@gmail.org. You can always send an email to us and express your interest in fostering, or whatever is on your mind. If you're interested in just getting involved, we have, again, the foster and volunteer applications are on our website. You can always go there to fill those out, and that'll get you in touch with somebody within our rescue to follow up. But other than that, I think that's all I have for you guys. I hope you guys, thank you for taking the time to watch this, and I hope we can recruit a bunch of new fosters to help us in our mission of providing loving care to every cat and kitten that comes into our rescue. Look forward to hearing from you guys, and thanks again.